Monster Madness Battle for Suburbia is a very broken and wacky game about killing monsters, and one of its main mechanics for that is Monster FESTS. Monster FESTS are sections and levels where you are locked into an arena and forced to kill a certain amount of monsters in order to proceed in the level. This is an integral mechanic as it's the main way you meet new monsters whilst getting score and tokens. So how about we just don't interact with this mechanic at all? Unsurprisingly, given how broken this game is, it is trivial to skip Monster Fest, leave them early, or not trigger them at all. But first, let's define what a Monster Fest is. It's a part of a level where you're locked into some sort of arena and have to kill all the monsters or some similar objective in order to proceed. This is what differentiates it from encounters and boss fights. So today, let's see how many Monster Fests can we skip in Monster Madness. Since level 1 doesn't have any Monster Fest, we will instead just skip to level 2, Streets of Suburbia, which has one Monster Fest. This Monster Fest is simply called the First Fest. In order to skip this, we're going to utilize a few exploits which you'll get to know very well. The first is Minigun Hop. When you fire the minigun, it pushes you back. If your back is against a wall and you jump, the pushback will instead send you upwards. Gaining height in this game unintentionally is very exploitable, which leads into our next glitch, Super Hop. This glitch combines Minigun Hop and Bouncy Shoes, an item we shouldn't normally have outside of select levels, which lets us gain extreme amounts of height. Using Super Hop, we can load into the level, back up, put on the Bouncy Shoes, and start minigun hopping, which sends us upwards and on top of an invisible wall. We can then bunny hop straight to the end of the level, completely skipping the fest and the level as a whole. Level 3, A Walk in the Park, is a bit more complex, but still pretty easy. This level has two fests, the park and the swan boat. Starting the level, we can run to the park gate and minigun hop over the gate. Because we didn't open the gate the intended way, the fest never triggers and we can just walk right by. At the swan boat, we can enter it and swim to the right. If we stay on this path in a straight line, we can swim right past the fest trigger and then just swim to the other side of the dock, never triggering the fest. From there, we can kill Granny and end the level, keeping our streaks of no fest played. Level 4, Downtown Invasion, is another quick one, but this level has 3 Monster Fests: the Highway, Construction, and Police Station Fests. It might sound daunting, but it's no biggie. First, we run to the highway, kill this fat zombie, and trigger the Highway Fest. Then, we equip Bouncy Shoes and Super Hop on top of this invisible wall that separates the beginning and ending highway of this level. Then we B-hop straight to the end because for some reason the end level trigger is active the entire time. Once we hit that, the level ends in less than a minute, skipping every single fest. We're gonna skip over level 5 because it has no fest and go to level 6, Parking Lot Go Boom. This level has one fest, the car wash, but given how much space we have a lot of options for breaking this level, so let's go for the most optimal one. Since this level introduces Bouncy Shoes, we get a free pair to B-hop to the gate we're supposed to blow up. If we get on top of this fence, we can super hop over the very tall invisible wall and land on the other side. The checkpoint trigger is still active, so we can hit it, reset to it, and continue the level as normal, completely skipping the fest and also half the level. Level 7 is a bit trickier, but thankfully it only has one fest, the Jacko Fest. The reason this level is tricky is because we start off in a monster form that we can't exit, so we have to find a way to break out of it. Thankfully, if we have 2 other controllers, we can call in 2 other players at the same time. And for some reason, one of them won't become a zombie and will remain human. Using the human, we can super hop on top of the level ceiling and walk past the fest. Then we drop down on top of the next section of the level, bypassing it entirely. We have been on a hot streak so far, skipping 8 fests and not playing a single one, but unfortunately, this level, Mallfield Tour, is where that ends, as it has our first fest we must complete. However, a hot streak that won't end is my gratefulness if you happen to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot and gets the videos out to more people. But plugging aside, this level has 2 fests, the Captain Bones Fest and the Monster Fight Club. Starting the level, we can minigun hop on top of this awning and run on the second floor of the mall, something we're not supposed to do until the end of the level. We can run past the first fest and play through the level as normal after that. However, when we come back, this is where problems arise. The trigger to start the boss doesn't activate until this fest is completed. While you can go over to it, nothing will happen until the fest is beaten. This means we are unfortunately forced to complete the Monster Fight Club to proceed. After that though, we can end the level as normal, marking the Monster Fight Club as our first fest that we must complete. Level 8 was kinda disappointing, but thankfully level 9 has us covered. This level has 2 fests, the Martian Fest and the Soccer Field Fest. These are trivial to skip, so let's get into it. First, we come to this side of the school and start super hopping on top of the school. Then we B-hop to the other side near the soccer field. but instead of going ahead, we just go to a door to the left that leads to the level's boss fight. However, there's no way to get inside except for a niche clip. If we stand in front of the door and transform into a demon, we just clip straight through the door and start the boss fight. I don't know why this works, but sure. This method doesn't trigger either FEST and also looks really cool. Going into level 10, this level was considered unbreakable for a long time, however recently cracks have began to show, which tells us this level is very exploitable. This level has 5 FESTs, the most of any level so far. The Fist Fest, the Demon Fest, the Library Fest, the Chemistry Lab, and the Robot Fest. We got our work cut out for us, so let's start. First, the trigger for the Fist Fest isn't perfect, it's simply a very thin line. To skip it, we use the Demon Form's teleport to simply teleport right past the trigger and move on. The Demon Fest is actually skipped by the game itself. If we go to Child's Play difficulty, the Fest will start, but will just end by itself for some reason. Thanks, Monster Madness. The Library Fest is also easily skipped with a co-op exploit. In co-op, some Fests can't trigger if both players aren't in the Fest area, which is also true for the Library Fest. If we place the second player in the second floor and have the first player just walk past the library, we can exit the second player and skip the Fest entirely. The Chemistry Lab unfortunately can't be skipped. None of our tricks work here, it's way too enclosed. That forces us to play it out. The same goes for the Robot Fest. The end level trigger only activates when the Fest is completed, forcing us to complete it. Still though, 3 of 5 Fests skippable is pretty good. Level 11 is a really quick level, as it only has 2 Fests, and it's also just a very short level in general. We can skip both Fests in one skip by super hopping on top of this wall and using the Demon Form to roll to the ending boss. After we beat him, we can end the level in less than a minute, skipping both Fests. Level 12 on paper sounds like a huge problem for this little journey. It's gigantic, and there's a monstrous 6 Monster Fests in this level. The Arm Fest, the Witch Fest, the Elevator Fest, the Gargoyle Fest, the Bonus Fest, and the Mansion Fest. However, if the levels are big, it just means there's more cracks and more potential for skips, which is very true for this level. We can skip every single Fest in less than 30 seconds by B-hopping over to the mansion and super hopping over the invisible wall and hitting the end level trigger. And just like that, every single Fest is skipped. Easy. Coming off level 12, the streak doesn't end as level 13 is still chock full of skips. There's 4 Fests in this level: the Harpy Fest, Swamp Boy Fest, Green Gem Fest, and the Blue Gem Fest. The first 2 are easy to skip. The trigger to start them only extends to the actual center of the room, so we can bounce, fly, or minigun hop over the gaps easily. To skip the gems, however, we have to perform the hardest skip in the game, which is gemless. Using our hovercraft we got earlier, we must place the hovercraft in a specific way next to the boss fight arena. The placement isn't too precise, but it's still easy to fail. Then we run against the hovercraft to get the prompt to enter, but don't accept it yet and start running to the green gem area. When we line up with this grass texture, we can accept the prompt to enter the hovercraft. What this does is warp us back to the hovercraft, but since we placed it weirdly, plus the game is trying to keep us in the Fest, the game kinda freaks out, and warps us above the boss fight arena. Then, after we kill the boss, we can end the level, skipping all 4 Monster Fests. Unfortunately for us, Monster Madness saw we were having fun and decided to conceive level 14 in an attempt to stop this. They don't play fair, and trust me, you'll see. This level has 2 Fests, the Blood Pit and the Ball. The first one is really easy to skip. Just walk up to the left side here and walk past the invisible wall whilst not falling into the Blood Pit. The second one is where problems arise. The Ball Fest is the biggest in the game and takes the longest to complete normally. However, because of how giant this Fest is, it's impossible to not trigger it with all the tricks we have so far. So here we have to take the L and play the Fest out. Then we can end the level with only 1 Fest skip. Level 15 keeps it real easy for us with only 1 Monster Fest right at the start. We can easily path around it and not trigger it at all via super hopping onto some trees. These trees all have collision, which provides us with a straight path to just walking past this Fest. Level 16 is unfortunately unbreakable. Yep, this level has 3 Fests: the Stair Fest, the Miss Hiss Fest, and the Anti-Gravity Fest. Not a single one of these you can skip. Completely. And that's just how it's gonna be. Forever and ever.
Hold it! Hold your shit right there, Evie.
Larry, when did you get here?
The Stairfest is totally skippable if you know the setup. First things first, you need another player to get started. This is because the Monster Fest won't start unless every player's inside the room. We are going to exploit this by having one player stay outside of the room for the entire skip. The second player will stand on the right side of the wall where the entrance to the Fest is, and then set a tennis turret to keep them in place. Trust me, the turret is absolutely necessary. This game does not like it when players separate. The first player will then walk carefully up the stairs, making sure to manipulate the camera as much as possible while also not getting dragged into the abyss. When that stops working, the first player should then use a monster amulet. This will cause the camera to shift more in favor of the transformed player and allow them to complete their journey around the stairs. Make sure to quickly deal with any monsters blocking your path. At the end of the stairs, the camera will go apeshit, but as soon as the first player makes their way through the room, the second player will then exit the game and all is normal again. Just like that, bada bing, bada bleep. The stairs are skipped.
Well, that was rude, but he wasn't wrong. I suppose level 16 isn't as unbreakable as I thought. Well, anyway, kind of, because the Miss Hiss Fest is actually unskippable this time. I have tried to find a method myself, but the camera angle and positioning just isn't right to skip it. Maybe one can be found, but for now, we have to take the L here. And trust me, our luck does not get better with the Anti-Gravity Fest. Whilst we can run right past it with some expert B-hops, the rest of the level won't actually load until the fest is completed. If we try to proceed anyway, we get soft-locked. So unfortunately, that's another fest we have to play out. God damn it! Then we finish this level with only one fest skipped and 2 played out. That makes this the only level where the numbers of fests played outnumbers the amount of fests skipped. God, I hate level 16. Level 17 is our final level with fests, and this level does not disappoint as a finale. This level has 5 fests. The Tower Fest, the Banshee Fest, the Gear Fest, the Bridge Fest, and the Final Fest. The Tower Fest is the most pitifully easy skip in the game. It's a miracle this wasn't patched. All you gotta do is go to the top of the fest and jump out of it. This also skips the Banshee Fest since the trigger is only at this line, so you can just walk past both fests. The Gear Fest only happens on Thriller difficulty and above, but there's no known skips for it. That makes us have to complete it normally. And I'm not going to count it not appearing on Child's Play difficulty because it not happening on Child's Play is intentional, whilst the Demon Fest was unintentional. The Bridge Fest is also a skip the game just gives to you. This fest is broken on PC and doesn't happen at all no matter the difficulty. The monsters for it spawn, it's just that the gate never rises, so the fest kinda doesn't exist. This fest works fine on Xbox, so I don't know what happened on PC. The final fest is the apex of fest skips, because this fest usually takes nearly 15 minutes, but we can skip it in 30 seconds. First, we gotta hop down the wall and grab some bouncy shoes. Then, we bounce back up and enter the fest. We place a turret to distract the zombies and super hop up this invisible wall. After a few bounces, we land on top of it and can just walk to the end level trigger. With that final skip, we end our journey. Out of a total of 40 fests, we skipped 33 and only played and completed 7. And that number could go even lower if more skips and glitches are found, but that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more Monster Madness content. And subscribe to Larry_Sway777 on YouTube, as he was the guy you heard talk of earlier. And join the Monster Madness Discord to talk about all things Monster Madness. Yeah. Bye.